and wanted like to be this guy, the back and
Right.
forth guy, instead of being this guy, right? Just like putting
Okay.
it in. He really wanted to do the back and forth. And so he brought a step stool for himself.
Welcome back to Muse on the Mic. I'm Riley.
And I'm Emily. Thanks again for joining us on another awesome episode of Muse on the Mic. This is going to be a fun one, literally a fun one. I'm excited. But before we jump in, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, of course. If you haven't already, you're slacking. Do it. And follow us on social media. All of those links will be in the caption below. Join us twice a week, at least, maybe sometimes 3 times a week, either on YouTube or Patreon. Make sure you subscribe there too. Riley, what are we talking about today?
We're jumping into a bit of a toy story today. So, sex toys, can you implement them in session? Does it happen? We've got some suggestions for you and some funny stories. So, it is going to be a hilarious one.
Did we ever get through an episode without some hilarious stories? I don't think so.
No.
That's one of the joys of like the back end of the scene of massage parlors. There's a lot of bloopers and a lot of funny shit happens in between all the weirdness.
Yeah. And I think
So
a lot of clients, they're not sure. With all things, we always suggest communication, but for those who don't ask, can you bring a sex toy into session? The simple answer is yes. It does
yeah,
happen. They can be brought in, and definitely speak to us or your attendant about what toys she likes to play with or whatever fantasies you might have.
absolutely. And like toys is such a generic category, right? So this can range all over the board in terms of what you're into, what you like. Listen, some men are very intimidated by toys, so it may not be the first thing that comes to mind. But if you've been going to massage parlors for a while, and it might be getting a little
Right.
same over, repetitive in some regards, especially if you're seeing some of the same girls and it's not like mixing up, you're not extending longer, trying a different kind of session. I think toys could add a really fresh new spin and
Mhm.
might break some of that stigma of being kind of intimidated by toys because not every toy has to be giant or phallic shaped, right? Not everything has to be a vibrating penis. Um, and even vibration, if you learn to love the sensation, it doesn't have to be intimidating because not every vibrational toy is meant to supplement or replicate, let's say, oral from a guy. It's not replacing your tongue. It could
Right.
be adding to it, though.
Hmm.
And so I think if men just try toys on themselves, and I don't mean that by penetrating, I mean taking something that vibrates and putting it on your parts, feel the feeling so that you can
Yeah.
go, "Oh, this is women like this feeling."
Hmm.
Because it's like going for a manual technical RMT massage versus buying a massage gun. Like it's a very different sensation.
Yeah.
At first, the massage gun is jarring because it's so intensely vibrated. Listen, first time I tried an electric toothbrush, my gums were like, what the fuck was that? So get used to this sensation. And then I think once you're familiar with it, it's not so scary. It doesn't feel like this big replacement, especially if it's not phallic shaped at all. So I
Yeah.
think there's lots of room. There's fetish toys, there's kinky toys, there's really innocent, playful things that you can add. And I mean, like you said, just ask. And if you're too
Yeah.
shy to ask your muse directly, ask the manager at the front desk, ask when you call in, email or DM us, and Riley or I will answer you. And we can line all that up. And I think again, highlight a benefit of Muse because we are the only parlor that actually has a retail shop in our front lobby. And so you can make private orders if there's something specific that you would like and completely anonymous private shopping. We can bring the
Yeah.
toy once it arrives to your room. If we don't already have it in stock, we can pre order it for your session. And again, it'll be in your room when you arrive, and so on and so forth. It's very luxurious as a service, but really eliminates the privacy aspect and or enhances, I guess, the privacy aspect, but eliminates the need to even make an extra stop on the way.
Mhm.
And that can go from stockings all the way up to strap-ons. Like it can
Yeah.
range all across the board. So you don't have to stop at a sex toy shop or, the Bay or Zellers or wherever you're going to get stockings for the girl and so on and so forth. I think it's one of the coolest things about our lobby, to be honest.
It really is. And you always age us in episodes. And I'm going to point out, you just referenced the Bay and Zellers. Like, I don't think either exist anymore. That's how old we are. You're so funny. But I think with sex toys, men often get intimidated thinking that that means up the bum. And for some, that might be exactly what they want. But for those that don't, there's a lot of different things to explore within sex toys that don't have to be penetration. But I think also in the massage parlor scene, that's part of the appeal of having the toy is they want to give that penetration to the muse. And if they
Right.
can't do it themselves, well, at least they can manually do it with a toy. And generally, I think the girls are game.
Oh, for sure. You've got me in the back of my mind now, brainstorming stores are relatable. Okay, Zellers might be passe. Our American friends, like Target. There we go.
Right.
Terrible. Um, you know what? With a lot of those things, I think it's really about, I would tell guys, think about either the activity you want to do, like penetrating the girl, and kind of being this guy, because he doesn't want to
Mhm.
be that guy. Um, or focus on the sensation that you want. Because aside from vibration, toys that involve their like a boy's bum is a sensation of fullness. It's a
Right.
quest for a different kind of orgasm, right? Prostate sensations. But things like a cock ring, for example, can be about tension and blood flow and
Mhm.
like intensity, vigor, and all those kind of things. And that's very different from wanting to feel bzzz on your testicles, right? So,
Yeah.
like, think of where you want to go. And then, even if you're not sure what kind of toy to ask for, ask us and say, look, I'd really like to feel this feeling. What should I be looking for? And we
Mhm.
can go through with our supplier, find a few recommendations, send you some details about it, and then they could pick and choose what you want to play with, right?
Mhm.
So I think it's a discovery, like getting into any kind of equipment, right? Like my first time in Home Depot, I was lost. But once you learn some things, like it just gets easier to navigate what you're after, what you need to complete a job. And
Mhm.
so the same goes here, because
Mhm.
if that's the mission to be this guy,
Yeah.
well, then we know what we need to pick from, and let's, get her input on what size she likes as well. Go with that, because size can be a little scary if it's too much. Um, but a lot of our girls also like bring some of their own favorite
Mhm.
toys or stock what we call a toolbox, which I just think is hysterical.
Mhm.
If I remember correctly, we've had some bloopers with some toolboxes too, right? Where people brought in
Yeah.
the wrong ones. Never dull.
Mhm.
I love it. So on that note, I think it's kind of cool when a guy either DMs or emails and they kind of ask first, like, does anyone have toys or is it okay to bring toys? And that's kind of where the conversations stem from. Um, but there are also kind of the differences of, oh no, I have one, I'm going to bring it in.
Mhm.
And then I kind of err on the side of wait, it depends what kind of toy, because I mean, always clean your toys. There are specific toy cleaners made, or use like a baby shampoo. You never want to use a harsh detergent on a toy, especially nowadays that they're all made of latex. You just don't want to deteriorate that product, because that's when bacteria can get stuck in the little finite little cracks. So hygiene is really important when it comes to toys, because if this has been up somebody else's bum, it's not going up mine. Full stop.
Right.
Right. But do you want to have to buy a new toy every time you're going to a parlor? I think if you're seeing someone new, absolutely. And
Right.
if it's someone on repeat that's like your regular, she'll keep it and then she'll just
Mhm.
bring it in next time you book an appointment. She knows it's you, she'll just bring it in. Or if she, you walk in and it's a surprise, she didn't know you were coming in for a session today, she'll be like, hang on, she'll run out the room, grab it, and run right back, right? So listen, I had quite the what we call a hoe bag, quite the hoe bag with my repertoire when I was an attendant, because you have to haul that stuff around too, right? Like our girls have little cubbies and lockers, but not every spa I worked at had such. So yeah,
Mhm.
my hoe bag was fully stocked and equipped.
Yeah.
Good thing it never had to go through TSA.
That's so funny. You know what I think is unique about Muse too with the foreplay boutique, which I don't know if you gave the name
I
for it.
didn't.
That's what it's called, the front
Thank you.
desk. store, is that if you're thinking about getting into toys, why not after a session browse through the catalog with your muse and pick something together that you can use for your next session if you did want to purchase something. And even going back to the guys' toys, I think it was something you sent me the other day, and I thought it was fascinating. I think there's more and more toys coming out for men. And it was like a cock ring, or it was a cock ring, but there was a second ring that then he put under around his testicles, but then had a vibrating pad that provided vibration just like on the gooch area. I think designed for sex, that would be really pleasing for her as well. But
Yeah.
I mean, these are things you can discover, and these are things we can help you order if you're curious enough, right?
I was jealous when I watched that
Mhm.
little video, of
Yeah.
course, because like my goal in my next life is to have a huge
Mhm.
penis. Um, it sounded so fantastical to like not just have that increased tension, but obviously the part that goes around the testicles was much larger. You don't want to
Mhm.
cut off circulation as extremely to your testicles as you might with a cock ring to your penis. And just to note for everyone, 20 minutes is the maximum time to keep a cock ring in. Take it off. Your blood has to recirculate. You can put it back on after about 5 minutes, but you have to do that because your blood needs oxygen. But, anyways, the thought of just having everything kind of held and like rounded off and tucked in nice,
Yeah.
it just seemed so cradled and lovely. I was like, this is
Yeah.
interesting. And what I gathered was that I don't know if it was that you could flip it around, but the option of that vibrating pad could either go on your gooch or up above your penis. So if your partner was on top riding,
Mhm.
it would be a clit
Okay.
vibrator for her, but he would feel that kind of on the front end of like or base front side of his penis too, right? Like of the
Mhm.
shaft at the bottom, because it's kind of like right there on his tummy, kind of. So I was like, the sensations here are just epic and everywhere. And I was like, damn, reason number 437 to be a guy in my next life. Because
That's genius.
wow. I mean, yes, there's lots of clit stimulators and obviously penetrative toys, but we don't really deal with as much isolation in that regard. The only thing that I can really think of that does that is people that do the Japanese ropes that will
Mhm.
like tie a titty separately, but
Right.
that's not really to define or enhance sensation necessarily beyond the blood flow and tingle of the skin. It's not in a sexual performance enhancing way, and it's
Mhm.
certainly not in a like orgasmic boost kind of way either. It's more along like the foreplay side of things as opposed to
Mhm.
like the climax side of things. And so just watching that whole video, I was like, holy shit, that looks amazing. You know, add that bad boy in and one of those hefty flashlights that they make nowadays. Who needs a partner?
Right.
It's wild to me. I was like, my God, they no wonder toys bother some men because the options are a plethora. And how would a woman ever compete with all of that?
Right. But I think men's sex toys, like the menu for it is growing. I feel like that's one area of things where women had a lot more choice generally. So it's interesting to see that men do have all of these choices and different things that they can try. But I was thinking when you were talking about one story where it was a sex toy by surprise that we heard about in the spa. And they make the surprises make the best stories. And I know we have a few funny stories we could share with you guys, but one in particular that happened recently was the muse went into the room and mistakenly thought it was client on the bed, but it was his blow up girlfriend doll. And she was extremely caught off guard. And look, there's no shame. She can join the session. But when you're not aware of what's happening, it was just like we're dying of laughter hearing this story.
From what I hear, it turned out to be an amazing session.
Yeah.
But it's that moment when you open the door and walk in to what you think is either going to be what a guy laying on the table like this, or
Yeah.
maybe standing up wrapped in his towel from his shower, or like, eager beavers like to sit right at the door, right at the end of the massage table, just ready for you to come in. And like to just walk in and go, okay.
We had
From what
someone
I
join
heard
us.
is that didn't she think it was like a prank from the girls at first,
Yes.
and then
Yes.
noticed like the client was in the corner, and she was like, oh, okay.
And like, I mean, it's pretty dim when you walk into most of the rooms. So I
Right.
can imagine it being a little shocking.
Listen, and it would be totally on brand for our girls to pull that as a prank.
For sure.
That could have gone either way. Our girls are hilarious like that. So between that and then bringing the wrong toy chest in, I think has been really funny lately because we've heard a few of them. Either they accidentally grab someone else's little toolkit or they grab the spa's actual tools, like our repair toolkit, and just in a blind grab are bad for stocking and storing them near each other. They clearly need to be in
True.
different storage rooms. Like to grab like, the pliers and some screwdrivers and walk in, go to reach for it and go, oh shit. All of
For
a
sure.
sudden. Hilarious. I would feel so embarrassed and crack up, be like, hold on, I gotta go return this. Right.
And I think some of the girls that do carry these kits, and it's such a bonus for the guys because she is fully prepared walking in. But I think it
Right.
also takes the pressure off of mileage for girls at times too. Because if he
Definitely.
wants all of that penetration and different things putting inside of her that she's not necessarily comfortable with, what better way than being, pass him this and say, I happily will take that. And I think it does relieve that mileage pressure and satisfies his craving at the same time.
100%. It can even knock some of our bucket list items off too, right?
Welcome back to Just the Tip with Riley. So today we're diving into a part 2 or a continuation of Muse's premium sessions. Last week we discussed the infamous Muse mixer, the power play, and the H2O. So today let's finish off with the backstage pass, the edge, and our newest feature session, the centerfold. The backstage pass, or the BSP, is a 45-minute session that I think every man needs to experience at least once. It's focused on discovering new pleasure spots all around your penis, providing prolonged teasing of your taint, balls, and prostate. For those of you who might feel a little intimidated when you hear the word prostate play, keep in mind the prostate can be stimulated both internally and externally.
If this tip isn't enough, subscribe to Patreon for the whole thing.
I remember one session late in my career that involved a double-ended dildo, which I had seen in porn before, but
Mhm.
never saw in real life. I'd never touched one. I'd seen
Yeah.
one in a sex shop kind of hanging in a package, but like I'd never, been up close and
Yeah.
personal. And this guy, God love him, I'll never forget him. He still comes to spa too. Um, was a short king, and so he really wanted the view and like the experience. He booked a duo and wanted like to be this guy, the back and
Right.
forth guy, instead of being this guy, right? Just like putting
Okay.
it in. He really wanted to do the back and forth. And so he brought a step stool for himself so he could get this like bird's eye view for himself, which hell, that's probably the best view, right?
Okay.
Because legs spread open, vaginas close together. Be this guy. I
Yeah.
get it. And it was great. I enjoyed the session. I came like crazy. It was fun. But it was like it was my first experience. And I was like, maybe that wasn't at the top of my bucket list, but I was like, been there, did that. That was cool. Like, I thought it was super interesting
Yeah.
because I just can't imagine. Listen, I've had some threesomes in my personal life before, but I can't imagine actually buying one of those because is that something I even need in the house?
Right.
Like, so the fact that I could knock that out at work, I was like, hey, that was a good day at the office today. I got some experience under my belt, notch on my bedpost, less body
Get
count.
back to the office.
Cool. It's definitely fun. But as I'm thinking back to my career, I definitely come up with like a gabillion stories of toys. But I had one like really god awful experience. And I mean that in like a gross way. We normally steer away from gross stories, but this one's worthy because it
Okay.
really highlights the difference between new toys and old toys and hygiene and common sense. It is so extreme, you're going to think, duh. But clearly, that wasn't the case for everyone. He was a doctor, of all things, which is alarming because he was very creative in his ideas. I saw this man for years. And every time he'd come in with some new idea, we should try this, or would you be cool if next time we do this? And I was always really, he came with cool ideas. I was like, sure. And I knew he was toy friendly. So one day he's like, I brought a treat for you, Miss Emily. And I was like, okay. And apparently it had been wrapped up in a towel. So I see this towel wrap sitting on the bed. And he's like, open the present. And I was like, okay. First of all, that's not a present. But anyways, I roll the towel. And there's this like ginormous phallic shaped with the testicles at the bottom, flesh colored like band-aid, like Barbie doll white person colored dildo with the veins and all of it. And he's like, I thought we could use this today on both of us. And I was like, okay, if that's the case, we're wrapping a condom on it first of all for my own safety, and it's going to me first.
Me first.
From your butt to me. That's insane. But as I picked this thing up, which I remember being absolutely hefty in weight, which was jarring to me because the few that I owned were not quite that weighted, like not even close that weighted. So this big honking thing. And I kind of like rolled it over to be like checking it out. And there was this huge black streak up the back of it. And I was like, what's that? And he's like, oh, it's probably just grease from the car. I keep it in my trunk. And he goes like this. Mom just starts to like rub it off. It's grease. It's car grease. It's not coming off, first of all. And he's like, oh, that's okay. That's absolutely not okay, sir. First of all. Second of all, you're a doctor. Fuck. You scrub past your elbows for everything you have to do. Why on earth would you think that car grease up either my cooch or your own booty hole is any which way near healthy and doesn't end up in the ER for some strange infection there isn't a fucking antidote to? Because what is that? People do crazy shit and use weird things as lube sometimes, but car oil is certainly not one of them. And he was really pissed off that I rejected the toy. Like he was a large fellow. I'd never seen him mad before. But like if he was a cartoon, there would have been smoke coming out his ears just immediately, red-faced and angry about it. And I was like jarred by the whole circumstance. To me, I was like, duh. It's obvious to be like, I'm not using this. Like, if you want car grease up your own ass. It was so outrageous. And yet, most of my other toy stories really fun. Like they were interesting things like the double ender, or the first time I'd never really bought a bullet kind before, but a client who loved to do it like all over my body. And I was like, who knew that feels as pleasurable, like on your wrists, that as does like on your clit? Like it just made everything on me tingle. I had a client that was obsessed with nipple clamps. And so they would get like, the more I'd get comfortable with them, he'd go up intensity. And so it was like plastic and just easy at the beginning. And then he got me a metal pair, and then he got a vibrating pair. And then there was one with lights on it. It's different things. It was so much fun. I have great nipples, so it was entertaining to play with. I had the equipment to work with. But that was like his whole jam. There was no other like toys about it. It was all about the nipple play. And at one point, it's almost like sharing headphones, one on me and one on him. And like the cord in between. And he's like skinky and romantic. It's fun. It was super fun. I feel like our Muse clients are just as creative. They come up with all kinds of funky ideas. And to the point, it's made us install some toys or toy adjacent aids into some of our massage rooms, which I love room 4 and 5.
What, the cuffs?
The suction cup cuffs, the straps on the door for restraints. We want to put some hooks on the walls so we can attach something or someone to it. We have one girl that suction cups a bunch of dildos on the wall to start her day.
And you know what's funny about that is every time I walk past her room, I always kind of, take a double look. I'm like, oh, it's her room. And I wonder to myself, that's appealing to a lot of clients for sure. But I have to assume there's some that would be a little intimidated or concerned walking into that room. Like, what is this woman going to do to me? She's a well-reviewed attendant. She does amazing. But I'm very curious what she does with all these things that are stuck to the wall.
It's just hilarious because like I've never personally owned one with a suction cup at the bottom. I've just never been a against the wall fucker. I guess. She so many of them. And it reminds me of that show, How to Build a Sex Room,
Right.
because one of my favorite little like aesthetic details of some of those rooms that that woman Melanie has built is the like coat hooks and stuff that are like just a big cock. Like we could get those on Etsy and it would match the decor, and then her dildos would just blend. A vivid imagination.
Or maybe she just lets them choose. Like, I'm going to use this one today on you. Maybe that's what it is.
Listen, pick your poison can be really fun, right? Like eeny, meeny, miny, mo, we're going with purple today. And you just grab that bad boy off the wall. But she is very good about like the hygiene and
Mhm.
safe sex practices when sharing or using sex toys. So it's very different. But I've also had quite a few giggles at the guys that try to purchase something, let's say larger, whether it's a
Mhm.
big dildo, whether it's a strap on, which means you've got the whole like harness to go with it too. The way they walk from car to into the spa is hysterical. They look like flashers with these like trench coats, this big package inside. Like it just looks so suspicious instead of
Yeah.
walking with your trash bag. Like, just walk in, bro. You've already committed. You bought it at the store. The parking
Right.
lot should be the least of your worries, right? And we're in kind of a off the beaten path commercial, like completely commercial street. So it's not like there's like pedestrians walking around. And they keep the packaging on. So like if anyone's seen sex toys, they come with like the same plastic packaging as like Barbie dolls and shit.
Right.
So like big honking square thing inside his suit jacket. And he's like hustling in the fall looking shady as fuck. It's just like to be front desk is like, sir, what's in your coat? Like, what are you hiding? What are you gonna surprise her with? It's just hilarious to me. But even things like that, it's easy for a girl to maybe have her own harness, and then the gentleman of choice just purchases his own
Mhm.
like attachment based on
Right.
what size and kind he likes. That to me makes sense. Most harnesses are completely washable. They're made of like polyurethane or latex or leather or some sort of really washable material, right? And there's so many options that even if a girl has one, I'm almost hesitant to say that to a guy inquiring, because what if you're on the starter level, she's on level 5 and that's all she
Right.
has? But you come in thinking, oh, she already has what I need, and then she really doesn't, right? So
Right.
communication, as always, we really like to stress that, but I love me some Toy Stories. Anytime the girls talk about it, I'm like, tell me more. What was it? What was it like? Did it feel good?
It's so fun. So, moral of the
It's fun.
story is yes, you can use toys at Muse. Yes, you can
Yeah.
purchase them at Muse and communicate with your Muse all your desires because there's a lot of fun to be had.
For sure. And the private shopping at the Foreplay Boutique is just top tier. I think it's just such an excellent little luxurious touch that
Yeah.
private shopping is so great anyway. Lord bless the brown Amazon boxes and no one knows what we're buying these days. But that's the best way to do it. Have
Yeah.
it brought directly to your room by the manager or already in your room for your appointment when you arrive. Take out all the middlemen.
Hmm.
Just make it easy, make it classy, and keep it clean.
I love
Tips from Emily.
it.
So fun. So fun. Never lose your handcuff keys either, kids. Play it safe. But you know what? Experiment, trash, some of those stigmas and play. Play, play, play. Play safe, play and
Yeah.
have fun. But what better way, we always say this, what better way to try something or to
Yeah.
learn something new than in a place like Muse, because it's an open forum in that regard. It's judgment free. It's something we're all comfortable with. We all learn somehow. Listen, there is no, I guess nowadays there's a how to use a strap on video somewhere. But in my day, there wasn't. You just had to trial and error to learn that shit. And so you get into stuff. And next thing you know, you add 3 more like kinks to your little repertoire, or maybe you cross them off. You're like, you know what, I'm not into that so much, but I'm really into this other thing. And I wouldn't have known unless she brought her little toolbox in. So
I totally agree.
I love it. You know what? On the last note, there's one other thing that I have to kudos Muse to, because there was a feature session that we had introduced. I think it was for such a limited time only. It was probably 3 months long. That is definitely going to make a comeback in 2025. And it was called the Treasure Chest. And so each girl had like a little mini kit of a couple different toy options. And it would be brought into the room when the client would select the treasure chest. And it was different toys that they could play with. It was things like flavored stuff. There was a little bullet vibrator. There was a small, like manageable little dildo. And a couple other little things. I think there's a few ticklers, a little spanking thing, like just some little novelty stuff as opposed to like hardcore anything. And the clients loved it because maybe it's something you never would ask for, or something that you've never even thought of, or wouldn't, let's say, spend money on until you try it and you like it, to invest in a toy. Or maybe you haven't found your favorite Muse yet, but like try it that way. And that way you get to play a little bit with a couple different things. She'll take out all the toys. Again, you kind of pick and choose what you like. Reminds me of the toy box that you get at Red Lobster for the kids. They're like, pick your toys. And you pick whether you want like games or coloring or playing cards or whatever you like. But like pick your poison, play with your Muse, get into all the shenanigans and the fun, lots of giggles for sure. Hopefully lots of coming. And later on, if you're like, you know what, I really like insertion, or I really like vibrational feelings, or, you know, whatever it is, it can then open your mind to experimenting into some other toys and finding something that's perfect for your needs. So yay, Muse, get it done. I'll honk my damn.
So look for the treasure chest making a comeback soon.
Absolutely. In the new year. I love it. I love it. I love it. On that note, I think we wrapped up Toy Stories. How does that sound to you?
That was fun.
I love it. Play lots and play safe, guys. We'll see you on the next episode.
Bye.
Bye.